What's up?
Hello! It's Thursday. You know what that means.
Time to take a nap.
It's podcast day!
Oh, I guess that means it's podcast day.
It's Failing Your Way Forward podcast day.
Failing our way forward. Yes.
On the Quintin and Lori show? I don't know.
Okay, great start. Great start. We're really knocking this one out. So today we are going to talk about parenting your kiddos. So we're just going to do some generalized talking about what does it mean to parent and how to remain united as a front while you're parenting, because them little turds will try to divide you.
It's so true. No matter the age. I mean, we're in the age right now of 12 to 18. And so
it definitely gets worse the older that they get.
We don't tell the young viewers that.
Oh.
The young parents want to feel hopeful that it gets a little easier.
It does get easier, and it also gets harder. So it's like you just trade realities.
Yeah. It's like the boo-boos when they're little, you can kind of kiss them, and mommy and daddy are everything. Like they're the superheroes in life. And as they get a little bit older, they're just like, who are you? There's kind of like the eye rolls, and they're annoyed by you. And you don't have all the answers anymore. Mm-hmm. And the scariest part to teenage parenting, is that right? Am I saying that right?
I don't know.
Is that you just can't kiss all their boo-boos away anymore.
Yeah, that is by far and away not the scariest part of teenage parenting. Jeez Louise.
I think so.
You know what? My loss of kissing their boo-boos away has not crossed my mind in forever. So, no, that's not the hardest part.
100%
You want to know what the hardest part about parenting teenagers is?
Yeah, go for it.
Everything.
Okay, well, I still go back to the notion. For moms that are listening, you have young children, or if you're listening and maybe you're even have kids out of the house. Maybe you've made it past our phase, right?
Yeah,
okay.
season.
So
we
don't know everything there is to know about parenting, because this is failing your way forward. We are failing our way forward.
That's right.
And a lot of that is parenting. And if you're young and you're listening, feel hopeful that it does change. It just is a little bit different. And I still go back to the notion that kissing those boo-boos away was the easiest thing when they were little, because as they get older, they make decisions that impact them for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Not at 2, they're not making decisions that necessarily impact them for a lifetime.
That's the thing. That's why I say, this season is way different than when they're younger, because the consequences are so much more significant.
100%.
And so it's like, hey, if you told a lie, or you pulled your sister's hair,
or you scraped her knee, and I can bandage it up and give it a little kiss.
Yeah, wow. What is it with you and these little kisses?
Because that's what mommies do.
Okay,
that's what mommies do.
So let's just talk in general. Let's start with the concept of a united front, because I think that is probably the premise of parenting today, tomorrow, and in the future.
Yeah.
And I think we were fortunate. I'm going to give some props here. We were fortunate to have your older siblings go before us, since you're the youngest of 3.
Yep.
And set, in fairness, set a really good example for us to follow. It's specifically Bob and Jennifer.
Yeah.
But Karen and David as well. We just weren't as close, or didn't see them as much, so we didn't see their parenting in action.
The distancing was, they were overseas a lot of that time.
So we got to see Bob and Jen up close. Their kids are a season ahead of ours. That's a fair statement.
Yep.
And so we kind of got to watch and witness the rights and wrongs. I'm not going to say wrongs or rights. That's probably not the right way to say it. But how they did it,
roller coaster
and what worked
of
for them, what didn't work for them. Now, that's not to say what worked for them or didn't work for them will or will not work for us.
Or when you figure it out.
Because the kids are all different.
They're all different.
That's right. And so but let's start with the foundation. And the foundation, I think, this kind of goes back to relationships in general. So I would go back to, what's the, I already know, we never, for the record, we never pre-analyze what we're going to say. This is totally winging it.
Hey, it's crazy busy mom here. We don't have time for that.
Literally 30 seconds ago.
What do you want to talk about today?
That's exactly how it went.
And what's awesome, Quintin, and you know this because we were talking about this last night, is I asked you and I polled all of my followers.
This is one of those questions.
If you're watching this here and now, and you're watching and you're like, hey, I wish you would speak on this topic, please comment below. Let us know. We don't ever, let me just preface this by saying we don't ever feel like we have it all the knowledge in whatever topic that we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss these topics in a way that we have failed our way forward and continue to fail our way forward, and what has worked for us and what has not worked for us. And also realizing that all 4 of our kids are different.
Yes.
So what worked for our first child, it does not work for our youngest child.
Well,
and
a lot of them, because those 2 are the more
they are
similar.
very similar, but they're certainly not.
Doesn't work for number 2 and 3.
It doesn't work for the centers. We have the bookends and the centers. And the bookends are a lot alike in a lot of areas, and maybe I can parent them a little bit the same. The centers so much are a little bit similar to, and can parent them.
Yeah, they're all different, but... So let's go back to this.
The importance of.
Sorry, did you finish? I didn't mean to step over you there.
The importance of.
You just said it twice.
The importance of a united front.
Okay, so...
Yes, that's what you were going to.
Back to where I was going with you got to start somewhere. And so back to the podcast before this, we talked about the generals of our relationship. Now, there are those of you that are going to disagree with that, and that's fine. I do think that relationships can exist successfully without, and I shouldn't even say that, because what defines success or successfully? That's an ambiguous term in and of itself. But
it's like a healthy meal. I'm
going to step back and say I think that being on the same page spiritually is what has led to us being on the same page with virtually everything else, from our relationship to how we handle our finances to how we handle our kids. Yes. And so having Christ at the focus of our relationship is the foundation for which we lay everything past and how we parent our kids. Now, that's not to say I haven't found friends that don't know Jesus who have seemingly great relationships and great kids, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that everyone that's outside of Christ is a terrible human being. That is not at all what I want anyone to hear. But what I'm trying to be very specific about and intentional is that because we have the commonality that we do, we made the decisions that we did early on, going back to, hey, I want to be a stay-at-home mom, and if you're not interested in that, then we don't need to date anymore from the last podcast.
What are you talking about? It's
you got to listen to the second podcast. Yeah. But the same is true with parenting in a large part, meaning we teach our kids a lot of things, and they're all based on the premises of biblical context, right? So how we handle disagreements, and we handle them all poorly on a regular basis. So I'm not trying to sound holier than thou. I'm saying when I get mad and I'm screaming at you and I want to choke you out and I call you something stupid and I'm acting dumb,
never happens.
What is my responsibility there? Biblically, my responsibility is to own that I just screwed up and apologize to you and everyone around you that may have heard it and own the mistake, right? And your responsibility then, as a believer also, is to what? Accept that and also extend the forgiveness.
Yeah, extend forgiveness.
So those are important things to know within the context of how we parent.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, just to kind of reiterate in my way of saying things, is, we have found in our marriage to be very successful as followers of Christ. We have a guideline, a guidebook that tells us how to parent. And so we are thankful that we have that guidebook, it's the Bible, to be able to go back to guide us. Now, if you're not a believer, you can definitely create your own guidelines. But again, for us, it doesn't necessarily make parenting easy.
No.
But it gives you guidelines. And so, yes, that's been a good success for us.
Yeah, and for me, I would almost say it differently, that it gives us a similar foundation. So the guidelines, although I would accept that, because guidelines for forgiveness is an example. I'll give you a really quick minor example of this. I don't remember what the scenario was where one of the kids hurt. I remember it was Ella. She was upset.
Powerful. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Well, then you tell the story.
We were sitting at the dinner table, and one of our older kiddos said something kind of hurtful to the younger child, and you could see her tear up, and it was a hurtful moment for her. He didn't necessarily mean anything by it on the degree that she was receiving it, and it hurt her feelings. And so we saw that. We made our son apologize, and her immediate response was, "That's okay." And you immediately went in and you said, "Honey, that's not okay. He hurt your feelings. It doesn't excuse what he said. It doesn't excuse his behavior. You can extend grace and forgive him without saying it's okay. You need to say to him, I forgive you, but what you said is not okay. What you did is not okay, but I love you anyway, and I extend you forgiveness.
Yeah. So that's a good example of what I would call
Boundaries.
biblical context on how we handle disputes in the household kind of thing. So let's talk about seasons. So I think parenting and how you stay united are different for different folks. But the foundation for our uniting is that we come from the same contextual basis, meaning we both have a biblical perspective on it, and we understand forgiveness, we understand grace, we understand that we all fall short of the glory of God, and we all need
We're all
forgiveness.
imperfect.
That's right. And so
on a daily basis.
when you come at relationships that way, it opens the door for you being wrong and needing to be forgiven from other people. And also when you're creating a family structure that is frequently required to forgive others, that becomes a kind of a natural process for life. And I think it's an important step for any relationship that exists outside of the four walls of our home, right? So we start that, your seasons of life kind of go, in my opinion, that 0 to 5, that 5 to 7 to preteen, and then teen to adult, young adult, whatever, and then out of the house. We're in the teen to the 18, 12 to 18, like you said. But
18.
Parenting, figuring it out in that first phase was difficult because you're flying blind. Like I tell people all the time when people ask for my counsel about or they'll ask for advice. Like, here's the thing: you can read every book. You can listen to you can read to every parent, you can talk to every friend, you can talk to your grandparents, and they're going to tell you all this information, everything you need to know about being a parent. And you guess what?
Nothing prepares you.
None of it matters until you're there.
Yeah.
Because you don't understand it until you're actually in the trenches.
Every kid is different. Every household is different. Every dynamic is different. Whether you're staying home and your spouse works, or you're both working, or you're working from home. I mean, every dynamic's different. So it's really hard to say there's one way to do it. And I think that so many people walk into parenting thinking that, like, I can remember. Can you remember this, Quintin? We said to all of our friends when we were having our first baby, like, our lives aren't going to change. We would say that we were really bold about, like,
well, we did a lot of things. Like, so we were active in our first year, and our plan was
we're just bringing the baby along.
That's right. In fairness to that, we were like, well, we don't want to be the family that is always, well, I can't do it because we have kids. So we're like, we'll just take the kids.
I mean, honestly,
and we did a lot of that. We took the kid boating.
We did.
We took them on camping trips.
I look back, I'm like, I brought a 6-week-old on a boat.
That's right.
Like, okay,
yeah,
it's all good.
And hold on, let's not forget, a 6-week-old, whatever he was at the time, that had been in the NICU for 45 days.
Yeah.
So, like, he's our $1 million baby. That was our first kid.
Yeah.
So we were naive. 100% we were naive.
Yeah.
Every first-time parent is naive because they don't know what they don't know. It's one of those things. It's the old Teddy Roosevelt statement. Don't listen to anyone who's not in the arena. So don't take advice from someone that's not been a parent, because you can read every book, you can think you know anything, but you don't know squat until you're in the arena, doing the work, doing the battle. And even when you're there, you still don't know squat. You're just figuring out. That's the parent secret, like, that kids don't know, that parents are just trying to figure it out too as we go.
We are.
But going back to, like, so how do you stay unified in that first 5 years? Because you're exhausted. You're figuring it out. And for my answer to that question would be, we have to, and this kind of goes back to our biblical reference, so I hate to keep pounding. I'm not trying to Bible thump any here, but we had to remain very diligent about remembering that when conflict occurred, and it occurred often, right? Mm-hmm. Because we were stressed and afraid, and especially with kids.
We weren't sleeping.
That's right.
And,
when conflict occurred, and no one makes me more mad than you. No one makes you more mad than me. That's the truth, right? Like, honest to goodness, that's the truth. I love you more than any person on this earth, but I also...
You can fire me up quick.
That's right.
That's right.
And so, what we always remained mindful, and still to this day, it's a very distinct premise, is we're not fighting each other.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I think you feel like you need to say that again. When you were fighting... Be mindful that you're not fighting each other. Like, you all have the same
goals,
common goal.
We're on the same page. We're on the same team. I'm not
what's
fighting.
The end goal?
You may have said something that pissed me off. You may have done something that angered me. But my anger, there's so many other variables that play in that, and I think the enemy is one of them. He's out to seek and destroy, right? So he's out there trying to get conflict, stir it up, however that can be. He's trying to create that conflict. My war is not against you; it is against him.
Yeah.
and I think that, again, back to that premise, being mindful of that takes the conflict to a different level. Now, in the heat of the moment, not gonna lie, you can totally lose sight of that and just it's the Bart Simpson, like
you know it's, emotions are high, you're exhausted, and all these superficial, not that they're not important, but like they're not permeating, issues that are kind of the outliers that really distract you from the real focus and real goal. And we get distracted by those things, and we fight on things that that are so dumb, about dinner, about who's doing the laundry, about like who's gonna mow the grass, like, okay, what is the end goal here? What is the common goal? And I think sometimes in your parenting, you have to look at, and you're literally in the thick of it, knee-high in diapers and laundry. You have to realize that, like, okay, yeah, you want the laundry done, and you're maybe complaining at one another who's doing the laundry or not doing the laundry, not doing enough or whatever, or not doing it right, or it's too, wrinkly or whatever. But the reality is that the end goal is what? What's your end goal? So what are you trying to accomplish? And I think when you can know what you're trying to accomplish, you have those guidelines in parenting, what your true accomplishment or goal is for parenting together, then you can get there a lot easier.
So I'm going to take that and go a different route with it as well. And I think that the kind of number 2 thing that I would talk to people about, if I was say, hey, what are the tips, tricks, and what do you need to know? You got to be on the same page, right? 1. But 2 is, you got to, I would make the argument that for a successful marriage, the two people who, if you find two people who are constantly trying to outserve each other, you will find a successful marriage. Mm-hmm. And so going back to, I can remember times of frustration trying to get out of the laundry room door, because that's where the exit to our old house was, right? And I literally climbing over mounds of laundry and dishes stacked in the oven, because they wanted.
That's a tip for you, ladies.
As I'm trying to get out to work,
you don't want your husband to come home stressed out. Just put those dirty dishes in the oven and hope nobody turns it off.
Yeah, right. But I can remember that being frustrating.
It's so true.
And of course, you're frustrated. You're like, "Hey, dumbass, why don't you put some laundry in if it bothers you?" Which is fair.
Fold the load.
That's an absolute fairness. So, so going back to the premise, our goal has always been to try to outserve one another, right? And to when you see a need, fill the need.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And so that goes with parenting. Now, you're going to have variances on parenting. And here's an early one, then it's a good one. Sleep. How do you parent kids with the sleep? Training, because we believe both. And it took us a while to get there. Reading books and trial and error, and our first kid was a lot harder. But I with all of my core, I believe that you teach your kids to sleep. And then after that, life changes.
I think, sleep deprivation does a lot for somebody's mind and does a lot for destructive elements in your relationship. And so I can remember a day, and I'll share this experience, and it hurt my feelings at the time. Can you imagine, has your husband ever hurt your feelings?
I'm going to have to start thinking of times that you hurt my feelings and made me feel like turd, because you're going to share a bunch of them.
Okay, so here it is.
Because she's like an elephant. Doesn't forget anything.
I do not forget
It's all plugged in there.
I can remember.
I'm the best person you'll ever confide in, because I don't remember anything.
Yeah, right. He'll forget it the next day. But we had our first baby, and if you've heard our previous podcast, he had a lot of issues. He was in and out of the hospital for the first 5 years of his life, and minor struggles now, not major struggles anymore, thank the Lord. But it rocked our world. I mean, becoming a brand new parent rocked our world, and this rocked our world. And so I can remember, prior to kids, I was a very successful businesswoman. I traveled. I had a lot of responsibilities, managed a lot of people, and I did it really well.
Uh-oh.
Like
wow, is your shoulder sore? I mean, from patting yourself on the back?
I know it sounds crazy, but literally, I felt good. I felt like that confident woman that was
she's every woman.
Yes. And so I was like, I got this parenting thing. I mean, this is easy. And then all this threw me for a loop. And I can remember I'm coming home. The dynamic had switched, and I was home with baby and loving every moment of it. And you heard in the previous podcast too, I had lost myself in the midst of living my dream. But he had come home for lunch unexpectedly, and I was trying to just take a nap on the couch. And I can remember I wore my children for a really long time. That's another really great tip, mamas. But I wore that baby on me. And I can remember people were so amazing to us and loving on us through meals. And there was a pan of brownies, and I was indulging in some brownies. He comes home. I had laid down.
Oh, is this when they had all...
Okay.
Go ahead. I remember
He had come home. You remember.
I do.
He had come home through that laundry room, piled of mountains of laundry that were still sorting and needing to be done. And he looks at me, and I can only imagine what you saw, but here I am exhausted, laying there, wearing a baby with a baby Bjorn, if they still make them, I don't even know. I had eaten brownies just previous to him walking in. They had literally like caked in here. I literally had my bra down because I was nursing. Like, I was just like mom survival mode. Baby finally had fallen asleep, snuggled up against my chest. Long story short, he says to me,
"Here it comes."
I thought you'd have us all figured out by now.
Oh, what a jerk. What a jerk. Here's the thing. I remember that day, and you tell it first of all.
I mean, it's my perspective.
Hold up. First of all, what a jerk, right? Okay, what a jerk.
I thought you'd have it all figured out by now.
Are you sure I wasn't kidding?
I'm sure you were. I mean, but to me it was like...
Okay, but listen, because you don't tell that story.
I thought that I'd have it all... I think I was offended or hurt because I was in the back of my mind, why don't I have it figured out yet?
Yeah.
Well, what is wrong with me? Like, if you're a new mom, you get it.
I think you're forgetting the part where you had boob brownie, first of all, because you had literally brownie smeared all over your boobs, all over the side of the kid's face. It was matted in his hair.
Baby was having brownie milk.
And you're like, is that what it was? A milk with his brownies. Like, it was absolute chaos. Like, it's like you just went, and passed out.
I honestly think you were... I mean, in a roundabout way, for those of you listening, he's not a jerk. I think he meant it as a compliment of like, you have this together. You've got this. Like, come on, girl. Like, as an encouragement to me.
That doesn't sound like an encouragement.
Like, I thought you'd have it figured out by now. Like, you got this. Okay, is that a better way? It's like a coach. It's like a coach saying to you.
It is what it is.
Come on,
I don't even know where we were going with this.
Don't know how you are off track, but let's go. And so, in the back of my mind, it hurt me.
We are both tough love people.
But yeah, we are. So you probably should know that listening to this. Yeah. We are very tough love. We just tell you how it is. But like when he said it to me, I was like, it pained like me for a moment. But then I was like, yeah, I've been thinking that in the back of my head. Like, what is wrong with me? And so if you're listening to this, there's nothing wrong with you, Mom. I have tips about that and helping your kids get on schedules. And it's called a pen and a paper and writing everything down and tracking for 3 solid days. Like I have so many tips. And that was given to me, and I did that, and I was able to kind of figure out a rhythm that I already had. So thank you for saying that, because I think it helped me to get things kind of together.
Okay, so let's get back to the topic of this, which is...
United Front.
United Front. So I think that there's a couple things that are important with young parenting. One is be on the same page with how you are disciplining your kids and how you are instructing them. Yeah. And so we would talk about a lot of those things. Number 2, never, ever be in disagreement in front of your kids.
Never. Ever.
And I'd say it's so much more important as you get older. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But be on the same page in front of them no matter what. And one of the things that we've always committed to is I'm not correcting you in front of them and they're not correcting me when we're parenting or arguing.
There have been situations.
Now we can say... there have been plenty of times when you're like, okay, Quintin, like, you may have been a little hard in this one. And I'll have to go trudge back upstairs and sorry.
But I don't do it in front of the kid.
Correct. You don't do it in the moment. It's always an after fact. So in front of the kids, we always stayed united as far as that's all they've ever seen. Yeah. Like, they never saw working mom against dad or dad against mom.
Well, we're not perfect.
And another thing is we never fell into... exclusive roles of you wait till your dad gets home.
Yeah, no.
It was never that.
Because then you paint that other
or wait till your mom get,
I mean, honestly, there's always kind of a good cop, bad cop, because we talk about that too. Like, I feel like this is going to be the 8-session podcast.
I know. That's why. It's like we're 24 minutes in and we haven't even gotten to season 2.
Okay, but I literally think that this could be layers upon layers of united fronts of parenting.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there should be a good cop and a bad cop, but it probably shouldn't always be the same good cop and same bad cop.
That's correct. So meaning, what that means is if she's in somebody's butt and giving them the up and down and correcting, then I need to come behind and support.
Yeah.
Or encourage.
Yes.
If I'm the one that's chewing on
Yes.
and giving you the runaround and giving you the rundown, then later on you're the one that's going to come behind and support. So as long as we're constantly swapping those roles, that's so essentially what we're saying there is your kids need the bad cop, and then they also need the good cop.
Yeah.
And often you will play both roles yourself.
Yeah.
Meaning, even in the same situation, case in point, I chew a kid out and I went too far, and you're like, hey, after the fact, you're like, hey, you may be a little hard on her. She's upstairs. She's upset. I mean, that just happened not that long ago with our oldest son. You're like, okay, that was too much. I think you crossed the line there. I'm like, and I was so mad. I hated it. But I went downstairs and I'm like, listen, I was too hard on you. I apologize. You just go own it. And there's don't wait. Just go take care of it now. Because don't let it fester.
Well,
right?
and I think part of that goes back to what we talked about.
You didn't correct me in the moment, though.
I didn't correct you in the moment. I didn't correct you in front of the kid. And I think we all, as a family unit, have the same end goal. Isn't our end goal to raise respectful human beings that go out into the world, in our eyes, as disciples of Christ and people that want to do good and share the love with other people? Like, that is a goal of mine. So if that's my end goal, and my parenting style is not matching that end goal, then we are holding one another accountable to make sure that happens. Now, that doesn't mean that we're perfect. That doesn't mean that we don't mess up. There are times that I literally have to go say, I totally blew up on you to my child. And I'm so sorry. Like, I know you don't care about hearing about my bad day, but like, here's a little look into what happened to me today. It's not an excuse, but just kind of let you know my perspective. And I just want you to know I shouldn't have talked to you that way. And so it kind of goes back to, like, what is your end goal with you and that child's relationship? And as your kids grow older, that 0 to 5, they don't understand that. Elementary school probably don't understand that. But as they grow into later middle school, junior high, high school, the goal is to have a relationship with your child. Not a friendship always, because they're not always going to be your best of friends. Yeah. So there's a fine line there. You want them to leave the house and become your best of friend. We're not quite there yet because none of our kids have left, but we are building relationships that are fruitful and life-giving instead of taking away. So if you see a kid doing something, instead of speaking over them all the bad things that it's going to bring, start asking them questions. And I'm going to prompt you on this, Quintin. I don't know if you had another thought on what we were just talking about, but something that I have learned a lot in your parenting style that I feel like we've become very united on is, as your kids grow older, it comes from, okay, you have chores. All of our kids have chores in this household because we are many hands make light work. Mm-hmm. All of us have got to do our stuff.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Mom, dad aren't doing it all. And so it's really important that our kids understand that at the age level that they're at. So, when they're 2 years old, they're able to help you put the socks away. Like, they can't really unfold. I mean, they can unfold the socks, but like little tasks along the way and parenting them that way along the way. But as they become a teenager, guess what? They can do their own laundry. They can fold it. They can put it away and have those expectations. But that also gives you an opportunity to parent in a different style of, I am now raising you to make your own decisions. Yes? Like going from, I'm telling you what to do every moment of the day as you're a child. But as you grow and you mature, I'm giving you some leeway in some areas that, hey, I'm telling you when snack time is at these certain times, at these certain ages. But as you grow older, you're going to start to say, I don't really want a snack right now. Or I want a snack right after school. Or, and they get to make their own choices.
So I describe it differently. I think it is from 0 to 10, 12-ish. My job as a parent is to teach you to respect authority and how to be a good human who follows rules, right? You understand what a rule is. You understand what the consequences of the rule is. You understand why the rule is in place. And 0 to 10, 12, somewhere in that neighborhood, depending on the kid, your job is to respect authority, respect your mom, respect your dad, respect your grandparents, respect teachers, coaches, all that stuff. And if you don't, there are consequences for those actions. Once you hit that teenage years, those teenagers, my job changes. And my job changes from, I'm no longer teaching you to follow rules because I've already done that.
You should know the rules.
My job now is to teach you to understand the consequences of your own thoughts and decisions. So, I'm not going to argue with you about you chose to stay on your phone past what time you're allowed to be on your phone with your little girlfriend. When you do that, you broke a rule. You know what the rule is, and so because you broke the rule, this is the consequence. That's your decision. If you want to break those rules and eat those consequences, that's your life. Enjoy it. So 12 and beyond is all about, I'm trying to teach you how to think. My job is to teach you to think about the decisions you're making and the effect that those decisions have, the consequences of your actions.
Yeah, 100%. And it goes back to, obviously they don't have the brain capacity as they're younger to understand all of that. And every kid's different. Maturity level is totally different. But it also, I think, gets rid of all those unwanted arguments and fights. We have a couple of kids that like to really dig in when they get in trouble or they get caught doing something they shouldn't do and want to make a big fight out of it. And I finally, about a year ago,
Stop giving them that.
I drew the line. And I even had the conversation. Hey, here's the thing. I know you kind of, not that you like it,
well,
but
I think he does like it.
Yeah,
so
I think there's a part of
like
debate that they enjoy or the attention that they enjoy because kids like attention, even if it's negative attention. Kids will act up to get attention. And so I have to think from my parenting perspective, am I giving this kid enough attention as I can? I understand that, we have 4 kids. There's no way we can give them all the attention that they ever wanted. I mean, it's just not physically possible. But I also have to draw a line in the sand and say, hey, listen, this is not the attention that I want to give you. And when you break rules, I'm not having a conversation with you anymore. We're not having an hour debate. We're not having a 5-minute debate. I'm not screaming at you. I'm not mad at you. Because, that often response would be, well, you're just mad at me. You didn't pick up your room. You're just mad at me. What are you mad about? No, room's not picked up. Give me your phone. There's a consequence. So as your teenager, you don't do the things that you're supposed to do or the things that you are you committed to do, the household committed to do.
Then you don't get to do the extra things.
You don't get to the extra. That's right. So hand me your phone, whatever that consequence is, take away. I'm not having a conversation about, there's no conversation to be had. You knew when you didn't do, or you did do something that you shouldn't do, what the consequences were prior to doing it. We're not having a conversation about it.
So I think that takes us back to the second season, and that second season is probably that's 5, 6, 7 to those teenage puberty years. So
did we talk about the babies? Really,
well,
parenting?
We just talked generally about being on the same page with structure, rules. We got on the same page with timelines and sleep habits, but those are all specific. So I don't know how specific you want to get.
So
but generically, where I was going to go with this is in the second season. It's 33 minutes into this. I know. So in the second season, which is your preteen or your teen, early teen, that I think we shifted into more dynamic roles, meaning girls start getting periods and boys start acting stupid because their body's changing and they don't know what to do with their anger and their hormones. And so in that arena, we did, I would say, shift into, not that I can't talk about menstruation and let's go get tampons and pads, or you can't talk about boys and penises and what all goes into that nonsense, smelliness and stinky feet and right. But we kind of fell into, or we accepted those roles where you kind of deal with the girl stuff and I deal with the boy stuff. We've got 2 each. That's not to say that they don't overlap, but I meant to say this earlier, we don't keep secrets from each other with the kids. So this is probably that season where things start happening and you're like, oh, don't tell dad. And something will happen with the boys and I walk in on something I shouldn't have and whoa, don't tell mom. I'm like, look, they don't say that because they know
it's have a conversation, but mom and dad don't hold anything.
Yeah, I'm not telling your mom. Your mom is an equal partner in this program here. So this is how this game works. And so this is how I think that's the beginning of that parenting cycle happens in that. I mean, when they get a little older, probably 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. I think that second season is when we started finding gender roles, if you will, that lined up a little bit more into the parenting world. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah.
That's not to say it's an absolute, because it certainly isn't.
I talk to my boys about boy things. I just think being open is
we had the sex talk with all of our kids together.
Yeah.
I mean, but we talk about that stuff at the dinner table as a family on a regular basis.
So I think that very first stage of parenting is structure, sleep. Kids thrive on structure.
But there's also things like time.
Structure.
Yeah, like time limits on your iPad and time limits at TV. And, you know, you're not always going to agree with that. It's trial and error. You're trying to figure it out. Yep. And as they get older, you're getting in trouble. So what's that? So what should so this is the age-old problem between mom and dad. They get in trouble. They do something they shouldn't. Now, what's the consequence?
Yeah, you got to find what their currency is.
Right.
What's important to them.
And you got to be on the same page with it.
I have to.
And so trial and error. We figured it out. That one didn't work. He didn't even care. We took this away from him. He didn't care.
So I think, again, going back to how can you be united together as parents when disciplining? I think first and foremost, I said it in the last podcast, I'll say it again, it's an unpopular opinion, but you have to have God first, marriage second, kids third. Otherwise, they will divide you. If you put your kids above your marriage is doomed to fail. Promise you. Because we've done that sometimes, not on a consistent basis, and it does not work.
No, I know that's an absolutely unpopular opinion.
It's a very unpopular opinion. I love my children, like, you know.
But our kids know that.
But they know that. So I tell my kids all the time, like, don't you dare go ask your dad that you've already asked me. And I said, no. Like, we're on the same page.
Because I tell the boys all the time, they're getting older, I'm like, hey, I'm spending 18 years with you. I'm spending the rest of my life with her. Yeah. So there is no in between. Yeah. Like, it's us versus you if you want to have a fight.
Yeah. So a common goal is that we're all together as a family, and going back to as they get older, it's having those conversations and setting, I think, the guidelines as a family. Your kids know that it's your marriage first, that you're on a united front together, and that everything flows from that. And so those questions are coming to mom and dad, not to one of you. Now, you can get kind of crosshairs with that, like, well, dad wasn't home, mom wasn't home. But then you have those conversations. Is this something that we would allow or not allow? And you don't allow your kids to do something that your spouse wouldn't allow them to do.
Yeah, and so
Mom, can I stay out all night long?
I was going to say curfew. So you get older, one of the big things that you're going to fight about is curfew. And responsibilities, and where you're at, who you're with.
Yeah, where I might be more lenient on the curfew, he may not be as lenient, you know? And so I have to be mindful of whatever I would say yes to, he may say an hour earlier, you know? And so coming to grips on that. So if he's not home, doesn't mean I can't make a decision, but what it means is that I have to value his input as if he were here.
Well, everyone in life knows nothing good happens
after midnight.
So our kids have had similar curfews, you know, as they've gotten older. We do make minor exceptions to that, but it's pretty absolute. So that second season starts, in my opinion, once they start driving. And then you have a whole different season of life on your hands, and responsibility and worry and stress. And
you worry about your kids not sleeping now. You just wait till they have a key in their hand. They're driving away in a car.
Yeah, because we are pretty extreme. Like, we only allow them for the first 3 months to drive at daytime. You own no more than one person in the car from distraction standpoint. You know, there's a lot. And nobody else has these rules, right? But we have these rules because it's like, you're a new driver. And what do we know about new drivers? They all suck. And I tell my kids this all the time. It's not that I don't trust you. I don't trust anyone who's your age. And so we all make mistakes. We're all going to screw up. And so being on the same page with some of this, and again, it's trial and error. Like, we tried a couple things, it didn't work. We tried to make an exception. You're our oldest. We make an exception for this.
I mean, honestly, I do. I say, I'm so sorry to my oldest, because I'm like, you really got, like, us trying to figure it out all along the way. Like,
we're still trying to figure it out with number 2, 3, and 4. So it's the same philosophy, but
yeah.
And again, I'm going to go back to what I said in the very beginning. We had the fortune of watching your siblings make the same types of decisions and watch rebellion against those, watch conformity to those. You know, the things that work, the things that didn't. So we had, luckily, we had what I'm going to call very good examples to show us those things. And still do, like, that's not past tense. But not everything that they do works for our kids, or not everything that we do would work for their kids. And so, again, it goes back to, and like I said before, you know, I'm spending the rest of my life with you, so it's us against them. that's a little bit of overstatement because
Right.
it's not like I'm against my kids and
we're for family unit.
We teach the kids. It's like it's the 6 of us versus the world, right?
Yeah.
And so, but the point is, you're not going to go ask mom something. You didn't get the answer you want. You're going to come ask dad to try to get the answer. We don't play that game.
If you play that game, you have consequences.
Yeah, then the answer is no. Like whatever you're
it's going to be absolutely no, and give me your phone or whatever.
How many times have you asked or I asked? Did you ask your mom? Did you ask your dad?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, what did they say?
Yeah.
Well, then why are you asking me? I don't even answer the question.
Or mom gets a phone call. I'm like, is your dad home? Have you asked? Well, no, I just thought I'd call you. Ask your dad. He's downstairs.
Yeah, so you're not working one of us. And you get a little better because you start to figure out their tricks and tips and like how they're trying to work one against the other. Yeah. And that, we are different. You and I are different. And so, some things I'm fine with, some things you're not. And I think,
and vice versa.
And I trust the intentions of what, just because I'm for something that you're against it doesn't mean I'm right or you're wrong. Like, we all have different, I've been a boy, you've been a girl. And so we see things from different perspectives. And, it's like going over to a girlfriend's house or a boyfriend's house or having them over here. And where do we sit? Where are we allowed to be? So we talk about these things and it's like, oh, well, we tried allowing them to be in the room and that didn't work. So no, we're not doing that anymore. And there's so much trial and error and we have time limits on our phones and, the internet shuts off in our house at a certain time. And
parenting is exhausting.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and you've made it this far,
that's right.
You are amazing. And I know you're probably figuring out just like we are, you're feeling your way forward. Never stop trying. Never stop feeling your way forward. And I think it's okay to be honest with your kids and just say to them, I'm figuring this out as I go. And I love you. And my end goal is to help you, not to harm you. And I don't see this as a helpful situation. Again, you don't always have to have those conversations as a parent. You are the parent. Sometimes it's a yes, sometimes that's a no. That goes back to the stage of structure when they're little. You don't have those conversations when they're little. And maybe you don't have those conversations as they get older because they have been trained as a child to know that when you say no, you say no. So sometimes I say no to things to my teenagers and if they want to have a conversation about it, and I don't think it's fruitful to have a conversation about it, then I just be like, no. And I've trained them at an earlier stage that when mom and dad say yes or no, it's yes or no. And so there's no arguing to it. So if you've made it this far, you're amazing. I think the best advice that I can give as kind of a takeaway, and I'll let you close it out, is this. When you have friends, it's like coming together, finding friends that kind of parent the same way that you do. There's nothing better than that. Having friends that parent the same way.
It's so hard when they don't.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that your friends are going to be, or their kids are going to be your kids' friends and the best of friends, but at least you have people that you can depend on. And so we have great friends that parent very similarly than like we do, that our kids can rely on if they don't want to go to mom or dad, or if I need parenting advice or something to kind of throw off. We have a fun group text that we'll chat with some of these friends that we've been friends with for years that will say, okay, Quintin wants this, I kind of want this, what would you guys do? And they're the kind of the same season but a next step up because they have a kiddo that have left out of the house just recently, and they get what we're going through. And so I would encourage you, if you're a young parent watching this right now,
find friends that have been in the season that you're in.
Find a friend. Never let go of your friend that parents the same kind of style that you parent, with the same kind of goals in mind. Stick close with them and rub shoulders, elbows, whatever they call that. And just, iron sharpens iron. So when you can't figure something out, communicate and talk to people that are in the thick of it with you.
Well, I'll close out by saying we have an 18-year-old, 18 and a half now. And so I've watched my own transition in parenting. I'm a pretty dominant personality. I love to argue.
Really?
I know. No, I don't. My second son is very much like me. He really loves to argue too. And I like to argue just for the debative part of it. Sometimes I don't even agree with what I'm arguing.
Arguing is a better way of saying. I mean, you're not just arguing. You speak very passionately.
I like to hear people defend their stance.
You love a good debate, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're fueled by argument or anger by any means. It just means that you want to know both sides.
I genuinely have an inquisitive mind.
Yes.
And so when you disagree with me, I want to know why. I want to understand why.
But some kids don't have that right to know why. They need to know.
Yet.
Yeah,
and
they
so
need to know.
What's happening with my 18 and a half year old is I'm giving him more leeway. And you've probably noticed this without me articulating it directly, but I'm giving him more leeway to argue with me. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm letting him fight me more. Instead of just shutting him down, like I'm just dad and you need to listen, I'm letting him have his rebuttal and his throw his fit or however you want to describe it, right? Because you're a young man. I want to hear you defend. If you disagree with me, then you better disagree with me and have some legs to stand on.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, defend why you disagree with me.
Yeah.
You know, if you think that I'm wrong, show me how I'm wrong.
Right.
And so I think that's the next phase of young adult parenting is, all right, you're in that college phase. You're going to start becoming you're an adult. You're going to start learning.
You can't control it all.
Well, again, we're teaching our kids to think,
I
and I want to teach them to argue and debate, and we've been doing that all along. I've been giving him more leeway to do that. And so I think that's the next step. Now, will we navigate it perfectly? Absolutely not. But I think if you asked him in the right setting, he would probably go, oh, yeah, I have noticed that. And so I think that's that next step of like, not only are you just my kid, but you're my kid who's now an adult. And so let's hear your adult take on things. Yeah. So that's the next phase. So hopefully this was helpful. We kind of went all over the board.
We did.
But again, we intentionally don't do scripted things because we want to just have a dialogue and see where it takes us. And hopefully you found that good. You may disagree with some of this. That's okay. Drop it in the comments. I want to hear what you disagree with because I'm that kind of guy. Also would love to hear what you do agree with and would love to hear like, hey, this was a good topic. I'd love to hear you guys talk on XYZ.
Yeah. Maybe even more in depth on parenting on certain stages. Let us know that too because I feel like, again, we were kind of all over the board. And it's hard to cover this subject.
That's okay. It's
not. United front in parenting.
You know whose podcast this is? It's ours. So we can do whatever we want.
It's feeling our way forward.
Yeah, you got it right that time. Nice work. All right. Failing Our Way Forward. Episode 3 is now done. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
All right.